Mad raving and ranting about unit tests, E2E, and unnecessarily complex tooling. Just me venting my frustrations on unsuspecting Mo. In this episode, we had some issues with the audio, so Mo's side is unfortunately not as clear as it could have been, but since it's just me running my mouth, I hope it does not detract from the overall experience. I hope you will enjoy what's about to follow, and let's get on with it. Hello everyone, and welcome to the episode 43 of the Office Hours podcast. Today, we're happy to have Mo back with us, and let's see what kind of questions he has for us today. Let's go, Mo. How you been?
Yeah, very good, very good. It's been a minute. I've missed you, first of all, and I'm happy to be back too. It's been when? I think a week or 2 weeks.
It's been a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks, I think. Anyway.
Well, it's summer. You gotta get up to something besides sitting in front of a computer all day.
Exactly. You have to do other things, and it's warm. You have to. We only get how many months? Just like.
Yeah.
To be fair, I would say just 2 months here, so it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so what have you been up to, Vasily? What have you been up to without me?
Oh man, I've been working a lot. Like really a lot. And it kind of sometimes feels like not much gets done, but at the same time things do get done. Like I can see some progress. I actually managed to smuggle in the library that I've been dying to use into our team, so we started to get people onboarded on it, so I'm really excited about that. I don't think that they kind of fully see the potential that it's gonna bring, but I kind of see it, so I'm really excited. It's the effector, I believe I mentioned it to you sometime. Yeah. So we're gonna be building business logic using that, tearing it out from all of the UI code, which is just driving me nuts. Like the amount of just horrible, ungood, really not good code that we've written for some pieces of our application. And yeah, I'm having high hopes that we'll actually do a good job of it. We're starting small. We're like just having like a tiny feature that we want to implement with it. But then once everybody sees the light in the way, we'll go full steam ahead with new functionality and refactoring and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's good. Like you've been busy. Like I feel it's pretty much the same for me, aside from like summer activities, but. Yeah, right now I feel like I've been taking even more responsibilities as work, and sometimes it's good. Sometimes you want to feel like, yeah, no, I just want to do the basic and go home, but it's going well. Like right now, I started to use there's this new tool, Cypress.
Mm-hmm.
It's not new. It's just like
New to you?
We just use it. Yeah, I would say new to me. Yeah, like to me, So it's a bit an interesting one. And I just even learned that we might even change from using this tool to using Cypress. Just when you think you're getting the hang of it, and then now you feel like, yeah, now you have to learn something new. But to be honest, I'm excited about learning. Like for me, this is actually what wakes me up every morning to make me excited to go to work. So yeah, this is good. So we think we might change it to Playwright. I don't know if you know about this.
Yeah, I heard about it.
Which one do you prefer? Cypress or Playwright?
Oh my god. Now comes the time when I start bashing tests. So we're still on Jest, and it's not pretty. Like I had to do a big refactor. We're like switching the way that we do authentication. There's like internal team that rolled out an SDK that we're supposed to integrate, and before that we were just using like some library for Next.js that does it for us, and they are very different. So no amount of feature flagging will save you from actually having to still keep the legacy implementation compatible with the new implementation. And like the MR that I did was like touched 60 files, not majorly, mind you, but like still 60 files, which broke like massive amount of tests. And then I started going into tests and I was like, oh my God, what is even this? So like impossible to understand. And I think it's like a consequence of, it's like we have a mandate for a certain coverage threshold that business kind of imposes, like thou shalt have 80% coverage, right? Otherwise, your CI pipelines get unhappy and you can't merge. And we're like, okay, well, we got to get it to 80%. Well, we got it to 80%. I'll tell that much. In terms of the actual quality of what it tests in those 80%, I don't know. The jury's still out. But I think mostly because of that, every time I have to deal with tests, I just feel that it's such a annoying part. I don't know. Every time you watch these guys that like proselytize, red going to green, TDD, all the good stuff. Like I get it. I get the concept behind it, but and they all usually like use Ruby and stuff, and they just write these tests, and then everything turns green. And then when you put it in like Next.js, like go test endpoints, they give you nothing. It's like, oh, you want to mock your API endpoint? Well, we're not gonna give you any helper methods to like create mock objects for your requests and responses, and because they're like wrappers on top of node ones, you just have to build it all yourself, and it looks ugly as sin. And it's just like, well, I guess this is my life now. Or you're testing React components, and then you're like, okay, I have a component that takes some props and renders some DOM. Like, what's there to test? Well, I mean, the way that we were doing it before with the hooks all over the place, it's like, well, all of the business logic is encapsulated in the UI code. So, like the years of preaching, it's like, yeah, keep your presentation logic and keep your business logic separate. With React, all of that just goes out the window unless you use something like Effector, which allows you to cleanly separate them. Because, oh, it's a hook. It doesn't run unless you actually render something. So your business logic is tied to rendering. It's tied to your UI code. There's no way to extract it out of it. And you can say, oh, you can write composable hooks, and you can have a hook in a separate file. Still has all of the issues of React, still needs rendering, still uses all the primitives, all the gotchas and everything. And now you have to test that. So it's like, oh, great. I need to simulate clicking a button to make sure that some API call went out. It's like, what? So I'm like infinitely frustrated with tests, even though I kind of get the point. But at the same time, I don't really get the point because, they haven't saved me yet, is I guess how I would describe it. For the amount of effort that we put into them, they haven't saved me yet. We have like TypeScript compiler saves me from things. Various code gen tools that make compiler unhappy save me from things. Doing contracts at runtime saves me from things. Tests, okay, haven't really seen where it's like, oh man, all of this is blowing up, and then we did the test. It's like, oh, here's the problem. So maybe I'm yet to see the light. And I have high hopes because, again, with Effector, because you extract the business logic, you can test the logic and the UI absolutely separately. And your UI components become dumb components. They take props and they render them. Like, that's what React is really good for. Although apparently now, ever since the unholy partnership with Next Team and Vercel and like the weird comings and goings, React is like, oh no, we want you to do business logic in React, and we want you to do routing in React, and we want you to do fetching in React, and we want to do all of these things in React. It's no longer this. React used to be a function that takes some data and spits out some DOM on the other end, like simple, really trivial, everyone can understand it. With React 19, what the hell is going to be happening there? I have no idea.
Yeah, I saw it.
And
I saw that.
I read the RFC for the use, and
they're using.
Like just the use hook, right? Like not, the weird thing that you give a promise without putting a weight in front of it. And it's like doing some weird black magics with state machines and multiple rendering cycles. And it's like, it kind of looks neat, but most people will not understand how it works. And if it starts breaking on them in weird ways, they wouldn't know what to do. Like for instance, right now, we're using this tool called Bit, which is kind of like a monorepo authoring system that they have a lot of promises, And in order to deliver those promises, first you have to download like this 800 megabyte file with their runtime that like bundles all of the tools like, Jest and PNPM and all of these things. And it never exposes any of them to you. Like you can't just run Jest from the folder because it's like hidden somewhere in the dark, coffers of BitCloud. And now we have this thing where it's like, okay, you create some components, you tag them, which versions them, and it like sorts out all of the dependencies and which components need to update because of transitive dependencies. Okay, fair enough. It like maintains local path aliases, so like you can import your local components locally without having to push them to registry first. Fair enough. And then you have to persist them, which means it pushes them to Bit's own NPM repo. And when you run the regular thing, it runs the tests, it does the thing, it compiles, it's like, okay, all good, here's your commit for, all of the changes that need to be actually propagated. And then you run persist, and it builds it again, and it runs the tests again, and then it fails in the tests that just ran 3 seconds ago in a different command. And now it's saying, oh, some kind of transpiler error, that some module doesn't get transpiled when you run it this way, but it transpiles perfectly fine when you run it that way. And now our build has been broken for like a week because no one really knows what the hell is going on. And because it's this 800 megabyte binary that you get, good luck figuring it out. And I wasn't the one to put it in the project, and I'm kind of very unhappy with the person who shoved it down our throat, to be honest with you. Yeah, well, like whatever React and Next and Bit and all of their ilk are doing, where they take something that's supposed to be simple and they wrap it in some proprietary thing, hide away everything from you and treat you like an idiot. I don't like those things. I really don't like those things. They make my life worse. They make my life better briefly in the beginning when everything is simple. But as soon as you start coloring outside the lines or you do something just slightly non-canonical, it's just, strangers with baseball bats are waiting for you in a dark alley to thoroughly beat you up if you try to do that using those tools. So yeah, I'm not a happy camper, as you can tell, because I'm ranting for the last 10 minutes on this BS. But honestly, that's what makes for entertaining YouTube videos, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can feel the amount of pressure that you had to let out there. I cannot relate to everything because, I have Angular experience. And for us on this side, it's things are a bit neater. We have houses for everything. We have more organization on our side as compared to React, but I can understand how what you said about like tests have not saved you yet. But sometimes I see some people argue about it, like, oh yeah, do we even need tests or do you have to write tests? But I think I see it much more like a form of documentation in some ways. And also I noticed that I find it weird. Do people really do TDD? Like aside from like on YouTube, like do you just go aside from like on YouTube or social media, do you really just like write a bunch of tests before you actually write your code, or like I mean, how do you even know the problem? I don't know. Yeah. Like, do people really do like this?
I haven't really seen it in a while. Like, I've seen it at conferences, I've seen it in YouTube videos, I've seen books written on it, but I haven't been in a company where, like, we do TDD and red shall turn green with some effort, It's like, oh, guys, by the way, we need to write some tests, and it would be nice if there was some reasonable amount of code coverage. Okay, got it, okay, good. That's sort of how it goes most of the time. And you know what? We still manage to ship software that works. So again, as much as I understand the concept behind it, it was actually, we had a conversation about like building video games. It's like no one cares if the game is fun. No one cares how like ugly and crappy the code is on the inside, as long as the game works and people have fun. So it's like, you can still deliver software even if you don't subscribe to the religions of TDD or just 100% code coverage and things like that. You can still deliver something. You might have some weird edge cases that maybe those tests potentially would have helped you solve. But at the same time, there's like, again, so much complexity exists that plenty of opportunities for things blow up everywhere else, and tests wouldn't help you one iota if that happens. So I don't know.
Now I'm thinking, I think I'm gonna be on protest, on the side of protest. You know why? No, not protest. Protest.
Okay, you got me confused there for a brief moment there.
Yeah, like I think tests are important in a way. I think maybe because for us we work like with UI, so you see things and like you can follow. If you make a button, you know how it should work, especially if you put it on the test UI directly. But sometimes I think maybe more importantly, if you work like in backend stuff, I think at that point you rely on tests to really know what you're doing, like if what you're doing is working. And also in the front end, sometimes like it depends on where you're testing from. So recently we had like a whole conversation about testing HTMLs, like you want to know if the text is correct, if the text rendered here is something. Personally, this level of test, I probably would be against it.
Like under what circumstances is it possible for React to not render something when you tell it to render it? It's like, here's a prop, put that prop right there. And React is like, I'm not going to do that, and let your tests detect that. It's like, in what universe,
At this level, I feel like for me, this is about too low, But at the level where, like, let's say like you're testing, like, for example, in Angular, if you have like a lot of like TypeScript functions, or like you are testing your NGRX or like your effects or stuff like this, I feel like these are important stuff because you never know, like you might be missing something and you want to know how it should behave, and like you want to test out the edge cases, like you said, and like you can know what to expect. You never know. Even if not for anything, at least for documentation, if someone comes to make a change in there, you should know what to
Right.
look out for.
I mean, I will concede you that point, but even with Angular, okay, Angular has like generators. Whenever you say ng and component, whatever, it will give you the scaffolding, including tests, right? But then you open that test file and it's barren, and there's barely any examples of how to do it right. You're supposed to just magically know it somehow. At least when I was using it a bunch of years back, that was the case.
Yeah, a bunch of years back.
I was like, okay, we have the generators for tests. Let's write some tests. How do we write tests? Nobody knows. Okay, I guess we're not writing tests because nobody really knows how to do that. Well, thanks, Angular. Let's go to the documentation. Say ng test to run your tests. Never says ng, I don't know. Maybe now with ChatGPT, you can be like, hey, ChatGPT, give me a bunch of tests for Angular.
No. Like right now, I feel testing Angular is a bit, I don't know how, I mean, I did React for a little bit. I don't think you suffer as much in Angular with tests because it comes preloaded with like a test bed. We already have like some test configurations.
I remember having like E2E integration tests, but in terms of for like components themselves, like unit tests for your components, like I don't remember there have been much of inspiration to actually understand what's going on.
We like in Angular right now, when you create like a component, like you said, ng generate the component, you have 4 files. You have your template file, you have your TypeScript file, you have your test file, and in your test file, you can already see it preloaded with the default tests, like something just to test something, just a structure. But it depends. If you use testbed or if you use like this kind of things, you can continue with like a testbed, like a checking. I think if you want to really test like the templates and all these kind of things, you can do this. But on our side, we mostly use just to like test the functions. And sometimes if you want to test like the HTML side, maybe you can use like Spectator or stuff like this to test these kind of things. But I don't know. I really want to think like I can share some of your struggles, but maybe you should join us here on the Angular side. But you see, this is the thing. I feel like React started very simple. Like, oh yeah, it's just a library. It's not a framework. You can just all you need to do is just run quick. But as applications started becoming more complex and UI started getting more complex, now you started adding layers on it and layers and like different things. And now it's difficult for everybody, because usually it used to be like, oh, you write all your codes in one page and like you manage everything in one page and like you have functions inside of your HTML, like everything is just, you know how it used to be, but I think that's the difference between React and Angular, because Angular started like, everything should have its own house. And now we're able to like, I still have my own frustrations with Angular, because I feel like every 3 business days we have a new version. Like you have to update like every 3 business days. Like
well,
right.
I think it's probably better than React just saying, "Oh, hey, React 18, everything's broken now. Enjoy."
I mean,
And then 19 is gonna come. It's gonna break even more stuff, and it's like, yeah, once every year you get to completely rewrite your entire application just for shits and giggles. It's like, I love doing that.
No, for us, like we have backward compatibility. Like even if like you upgrade or you do like stuff like this, you still have like.
But like even if I remember, even when using Angular Migrator, which in theory should do like a COD mode, not COD mode, but code mod, and like rewrite parts of your application to be compliant with the new thing. And I remember just days of like, okay, we're going from 5 to 6, a bunch of stuff is broken. We're going from 6 to 7, a bunch of stuff is broken. Should we take up 8? Because it's getting kind of painful every time we have some bits and pieces that like need to be rewritten for the new thing. So yeah, it's still very painful. Like they pretend like it's all easy. They give these examples like, oh yeah, you just run ng whatever migrate and it'll do it all for you. And then it doesn't do it all for you. And it's
it does help. It does help.
Yeah.
To be honest, it does help. But of course, like there are still some like when you have like any applications, for example, you will still have some like little libraries that like the packages that you have to update as well as you update your actual framework. I think maybe this might be one of the issues that I notice most times, especially sometimes like when you update Angular, you have to update Storybook, you have to update a few more things. Anyway, so yeah, like there is still pain on this side. It's not like it's just like you wake up and you just press a button and now you're on 19. You still have to go. Sometimes you might have like a lot of files, like depending on the size of the application too. Like,
do you know,
I remember one time
how many times I had to sit through and go through the package JSON file one by one, just commenting out one version change for one individual package, and then building the site and checking that it still runs for like all of them? Because some minor version for some dependent library just starts to break everything, and it's like just sitting there laughing in your face, and you just sit there and you take it.
Yeah, it is.
So I guess that's why I'm kind of more hopeful about the effector switch, is because we can pull the logic completely out, and the API surface for those guys is very small, and writing tests is really easy, because essentially it represents your business computations as a graph of items like events and effects and other things and stores. So you like build out this dynamic system, and then for your tests you effectively make a copy of the world, and then you run some event that triggers a cascade of computation, and then you just wait for everything to happen, and then when it happens you just poke at the state of this new world and see and observe the changes that you expect to be happening. So like it's really, really powerful. And because again it's outside, even if React decides to update everything and instead of hooks they'll go to schmooks, I don't know, I don't care, but we don't really depend on those anymore. Like there is a hook that the compatibility library provides that is able to pull in the stores and events and all that kind of stuff into your components. But that's like one dependency that the library authors maintain. So if React decides to drastically change everything, it'll be on them to, provide compatibility, and we'll just keep our business logic as it was. And yeah, so I'm excited. At least there, I think I'll have some refuge from this insanity.
Yeah.
But it is a bit of a mind bend in terms of how it's written, how it's operated. It's like, it's not trivial to just jump into right away. And I haven't had a chance to build like massive applications with it myself. So I mean, I hang around, I lurk around the chats and I read what people are posting, and I watch videos and things like that. So I still need to kind of for refactor, yeah. I kind of need to keep my finger on a pulse to make sure people don't fall into the old habits, because I know how easy it is. They're just gonna be writing it as if they're writing like use state with React, and that's not how you're supposed to do it. So I have to be there, watchful like a hawk, for proper form.
Hopefully. I mean, hopefully, like I'm really hoping that you enjoy this new library. I mean, because you went on a lot of runs right now. I can feel your pain right now. It feels like you've kept this in your mind and you're just waiting for the perfect moment to let it out. But yeah. I mean, it's good. But I was going to ask you about your choice between Cypress and Playwright. I think that was the initial question. Because like right now, I was learning about like Cypress exactly for integration testing specifically. And yeah, it's interesting. And I was wondering what you think about this. Like, what's your opinion with like integration tests with Cypress specifically?
So I would love to have some tests of that style for our app. Because right now, so like recently we did a deployment after some refactoring and some tiny bit of functionality broke, but it wasn't obvious, right? Like some checkbox did not propagate its value correctly to the back end. And that it hasn't caused too many issues, but there was like some downstream effects, because the data that was pushing to this API and that API was distributing it to other APIs. And because that thing wasn't present, things got confusing later on. So it took us a while to actually establish where that whole thing originated. And so having a way to automatically go through all of that and say, hey, when you run it and you check that checkbox and then you refresh the page, you expect that checkbox to be set. And then if you like call the API for the upstream, you expect this thing to be in a payload. If we had something like this, it would have caught it and we would have known sooner, but we don't, because it's just like there's writing code, then there's writing tests, and then there's writing integration tests in that order of priority, like everything in between. So they don't get any love. And it's not even just that, like, okay, now we have to write integration tests. Well, not only we have to write integration tests, we need to run integration tests. Our build is freaking slow as it is. I'm not throwing like another 20 minutes into our pipeline to do that. And if I only do it on merges to main branch, for instance, that's better, but it's still possible to have something happening in your feature and then you merge it and then it starts breaking, and now you have to create all these additional MRs and like go through the whole rigmarole again. And it's not just the tests themselves, it's like the whole thing that surrounds them. Somebody needs to maintain them, and it's just too much. We barely have any time to deliver the features that we have to deliver. Like I'm telling you, like if we were to do everything by the book in terms of, okay, we're gonna have all of the tests, they're all gonna be good, we're gonna like document the critical parts, we're gonna have integration tests, we'd have to quadruple our original time estimates. And even then, because of how much time we've allocated for ourselves, 75% of that is going to be occupied just dicking around, and then the last 25% everybody will be on fire, be like, oh my god, we have to finish all of these things. And now there's going to be way more things to finish too. And if we were to split it so that we work a sprint on features, then we work half a sprint on tests and half a sprint on integration tests, and repeat that cadence, in a perfect world where nothing breaks and nothing interrupts us and nobody just throws random tasks on our pile, that might have worked too. But I'd like to have all that. I just honestly, I don't really see it happening. Not in this economy.
I mean, I thought you were going to get to the point where you'd be like, yeah, you would like to have it, and then you are working on having it, and then you just like give up already. Why would you give up though? Like, do you think nobody's gonna accept the importance of it, or like, you don't think you can sell it?
It's really hard to sell because it only sells after everything could have potentially exploded and that thing prevented it, which is a fairly rare occasion. And when it works as expected, it's like a very good sysadmin or network operator that just sits around in his office all day because he configured everything so perfectly he could just sit on his ass all day and read comic books because everything just works. But if management sees that, they're like, how come this guy's sitting on his ass? We need him to run around and do stuff. Because they don't correlate the fact that him sitting on his ass is the value because he doesn't have to do everything because everything just works. That's why he's there, for everything to work. So they don't see it the same way. We can say, oh yeah, tests will prevent us from some hypothetical thing in the future where if something gets screwed up, we can detect that early and our customers will never see it. They'd be like, okay, yeah, that's nice. But the thing is, like, if something does blow up and customers do see it, we start getting angry letters. And if we say, well, if we had more budget to write tests, they'd be like, well, it's not the time to I told you so's. It's just how it goes, right? Like, and
But
economics dictate that we can't spend 4 weeks on something where we could do it in one without some of the niceties. So we'll do it in one without some of the niceties.
If you have the budget to even do refactor in the first place. If you have the budget to do refactor, because I think it's at least like in my own experience, like I don't know if there's a lot of companies who invest in doing refactor. But if you have the company who is willing to say, okay, we're gonna put this dev time into refactor, and then they should be able and willing to listen to how to do the refactor very well, because refactor is very tricky, especially when dealing with especially in the UI, because it's easy to miss things. If you do refactor in the backend, if you have like a good unit test doc, maybe something will catch something and then you can see it. But in the UI where maybe you missed one color or something like this, like you never know. I think they should be willing to invest in it.
You know why I'm smiling right now is because I actually remember the conversation we had probably about a year ago when we were talking about unit tests and you were saying, I really don't get unit tests, like what's the deal? And I said, well, if you do refactoring, then unit tests really light up if something gets messed up, and like they really like in refactoring, unit tests are really helpful because anything that doesn't quite work out immediately shows up. And now you're kind of retelling me back what I told you that time ago. So the student has become the master.
It's good, it's good. I feel like we're doing well. Yeah. I think, yeah.
But here's the thing. Okay, so one thing that I often see in organizations is that, unfortunately, not everybody sees the problems with their code and the way to solve them through refactoring. People kind of seemingly just not pay attention to it. I don't know necessarily why, but like, for instance, okay, when we run our test suite for our component library, for our design system, it spits out several console warnings and errors from React, like, oh, some key is missing somewhere in an iteration, or some other thing is like not set up correctly. But it's just a console.warn. It doesn't fail the test. So people running tests see that thing every time, and nobody does anything about it for months.
It's warning. Warning is just a suggestion, Vasily.
You got me there.
Warning is just a suggestion. But
I think it's the same kind of mentality where, like, I see all the gunk and all the crap, and it's like this place. For the first couple of weeks, it was like, oh my God, this looks so nasty. Like we have to definitely do something about this. These wallpapers are horrible. They're just so annoying. We got to get rid of them. We got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like 2 years later, it's like, yeah, nobody notices. We haven't done anything yet, and no one notices, right? You're just used to it. It like it blurs in your eye, and you don't care because again, it serves the functional purpose. Aesthetics be damned. But I think the big part of refactoring actually comes from aesthetics because, you know, if the code looks nasty, it probably is nasty. And you kind of have to have some kind of aesthetical sensibilities to be bothered by it and bothered by it enough and find enough time and effort and also convey why it's bad and how to refactor it so it's not bad. And people are way too happy to just pile on crutches on top of crutches on top of fixes on top of band-aids up until it gets saturated with gunk so much that it's impossible to do anything. Like we have a page like that in our application, and our application is really simple. There's not that many things in there. And then there's one behemoth of a thing that is just horrible. Like literally incomprehensible of what the hell's going on in there.
You know,
and we just keep piling on crap on top of it. And because the thing is, like, refactoring the whole thing is a gargantuan task. It's gonna take, like, I don't know, like a sprint just to understand what's supposed to be happening in there and how to change it. So everyone's just like, yeah, I'm not touching that. I'll just do a little tweak here and a little fix there, and
yeah,
it's all good. Just
I have a question. I have a question for you. Like, what is your development process like? So, for example, if you open a PR and you finish your dev, how did you get it to merge? Like, do you have like reviews?
Yes, we
like,
do have reviews.
How many layers of reviews do you have? Like, how do you do these reviews? Like, do you have like a... I'm asking because for me on our side, like, I feel like we take reviews very... Yeah, it's probably more serious than the actual development. Like, because everybody comes to your PR and starts like looking at everything just to make sure. Nobody wants to have the name like, oh yeah, you saw this and then you missed it. This kind of things. Like everyone is careful. So yeah. I'm wondering, like, do you also do this? Like, is it part of the company culture?
Yes,
or like
yes, it certainly is. Like doing reviews, you know, you have to, like several people need to sign off on it before it can get merged. So there's that. Like all of the tests needs to pass, the coverage needs to not dip below a certain number, and it needs to be reviewed by at least like 2 people on the team.
Yeah.
And there was a period of time when we were kind of going through just initial stages of team building where everybody was kind of getting used to the standards and everything. And I just designated myself the only one gatekeeper of all MRs. Like I wasn't writing any code. I was just reviewing code all day.
Yeah.
Right. And that's been going on for like a couple of months up until it kind of got to a point where I couldn't even handle the amount of stuff that I had to go through at any given time. And so by then we basically had to expand it to involve other people, like seniors at first, and then we sort of slowly expanded it to the rest. But the level of code review is going to vary. And I think code review in this case, it serves more of like a Swiss cheese model where the more people look at it, the more likely they're going to notice something. But it's impossible to get same level of quality out of everybody. It just doesn't seem to work. Like people just don't notice or don't care about certain things. They don't notice potential for refactoring, and some things like, you know, go uncommented on. And I don't know why. We tried this thing where it's like, okay, you guys, like all of the intermediate devs and junior devs, you guys do your reviews first, and then I'll do my review. Because if I do my review and I approve, everybody's just gonna hit approve. Like they just see that, oh, Vasily approved it, therefore it must be good. So I'm just gonna, you know, presto, done.
Vasily approved it.
But that's not the point. I mean, like,
yeah.
You know, what is it? It's like the Vatican doctrine of the infallibility of the Pope. Whatever he says is basically God's word, so nothing he can say is wrong. Like, I don't want to be in that position. I want to be able to be wrong or miss things. Like, I don't want to be the final arbiter I end up a lot of cases being one, but I'd rather people build up their skill and alleviate some of that from my shoulders, and also themselves start writing better code in the process. And the other thing that kind of conflicts with it is that it's like, okay, we have this MR, right? Some person's been working on it for a while. Trying to ask people to review your code while it's still in progress is not a very good idea, because it takes time. And then if you ask them to review it 3 days later, they lost all context, so they have to review the whole thing again anyway. And so what happens is somebody works on some piece of code for several days, let's say, and then they submit an MR. And it's like 1 day till the sprint is done. And, our upper management is watching that Jira. They just hit refresh on that Jira like 5 times a day. They hit refresh on that Jira. And if the tickets aren't moving, then, everybody gets shit. So, and then you find something in the review that is more egregious than just some typos or some stylistical choices or something. It's more of like, it will work, but it'll cause problems in the future. But because we have a launch in several days and this needs to get merged and UAT'd and all of that stuff, we're gonna have to merge it now and fix it later. The amount of times when I heard the phrase and said the phrase, merge it now and fix it later myself, is off the charts. And, and the thing is like, even if you add more developers, like you get somebody specifically to just work on technical debt. Well, if the person is not suitable for it, they're going to burn out of it in like a couple of weeks, because it's a very thankless job. And not everybody, as I mentioned, not everybody sees the potential for refactoring, and not even the potential for refactoring one step ahead, but like once you do that refactoring pass, how the dominoes are going to fall that open up additional refactoring possibilities, right? And sometimes, a lot of times, in other companies even, you see a code review, like you do a code review, you see a piece of code, and you see this thing, it's like, okay, this particular thing needs to be done differently. And in my mind, I was like, okay, if you do this differently, then you see that you can refactor this piece. And after you refactor this piece, you can see that you can get rid of this piece. And it just cascades. And you're like, you leave a comment that kind of pokes that first domino, and you expect the whole cascade to happen. And then you come back like a day later, and like the first domino fell and everything else is just still there. And then I'm thinking like, okay, well, I just not sure why I see it and other people don't see it, and how to teach them to see it, right? So it becomes this tedious exercise of like, okay, after you did this, it opens up a possibility of doing that. After you did that, it's a possibility of doing this. And now I think about it, like as I'm saying it, I was like, it's kind of interesting that I suck at chess, because that's basically chess. Like thinking multiple moves ahead. But I can't do chess. My brain doesn't work like that. Or maybe I never really tried seriously. But that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like, the first domino falls and it just stays there and it doesn't touch anything else, and nothing comes out of it, and it just has to be this, okay, this, then this, then this, then this. And it just takes up so much time and effort that it's very nice to do it if the project is very young and the code base is very small, and you can kind of still manage to cover the whole thing. But after a year and a half, it has grown to a stage where it's just impossible. Like the amount of refactoring that we need to do now to keep it sane is more than the amount of feature writing that we have to do. And it's usually the case, right? The more code you write, the more it's like explodes. It's like a combinatorial explosion of the amount of time you need to spend refactoring way outstrips the amount of time you need to spend writing new features.
Yeah, I mean, there is this, but I think like maybe, for example, we have something that we do. We have a template for the reviews. So I think, for example, in the front end, like you have to start with like there are templates, like things you want to check in your PR. And like we have I don't know, you call it MR, like in your
well, we use GitLab, so they call it merge requests, not pull requests. So
yeah, like we have templates for this, and like it's easy to follow what is happening in there. And I think this probably is the reason why, like maybe sometimes some people might miss things because it's if you don't have like a template or a direction of what to really look for code, you might just be like looking through like a bad gate or something like this. But I think if you are able like to come up with a template, maybe this might help like with the solution to this. I don't think it's about experience or anything. Sometimes you're just tired. You just want to get it over with. But if there is a template, it's easy to follow. I think this is just an opinion.
It has the other side of the coin. You know, it has the defense of, hey, I did all the steps the template told me to do, and I did them perfectly, and the bug still managed to end up in there because the template somehow didn't cover for it. If as soon as you get it, like, there are times where checklists are appropriate, and there are times that I think they allow you this escape hatch that allows you to just shut off your creativity and just like, okay, tick, 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 done. I'm done with this. I don't have to invest any more time into it, right? So there's that risk too, which I kind of want to be on a side of, you know, use your brain, don't just tick off boxes.
Yeah, I think it depends because when I started first, in other places, I think the reviews are different, like in different places. But here, like I think even now, if I notice a bad indentation in the code, it bothers me. Because when I see it in my I'm bothered, you know, just as little as bad let's say, for example, you remove something. I know you were going to say use prettier, everybody should use prettier, but sometimes if you make a change in the file, you're not going to use prettier to like fix the entire file. I mean,
it takes 5 milliseconds to run on a huge file. Why not?
No. You don't want to do that because then if you do it on the entire file, then I don't know exactly where you change. Now I have to review the entire file.
Like why would the file be so messed up in the first place that the prettier is going to change the entire file? Like, you're supposed to use it continuously. Like, the first time you commit a file, it should already be ran through prettier. So it never has to, like, okay, fair enough. Like, we had the times where we didn't use it, and then you create this commit that's just prettier changes. And thankfully, Git has a feature where you can exclude commits from blame. You can have a file that lists the commit numbers of the file, so if you do git blame, it'll just skip over those, and you're not going to be on a hook because you ran prettier and did a bunch of white space changes, and it's going to skip over it and go to actually the person who wrote it in the first place. So there's that too.
You're going to be showing like changes in your pull request. You're still going to see the changes, like
but you should put it as a separate commit. There's just white space changes only, right? And then have a commit with meaningful changes on top of that. And okay, in the pull request, it merges them all together, but you can see, you can still go to individual commits in the PR, and I hope you rebased everything else and squashed it down to one, right? So you can look at that commit and just see the meaningful changes in it and not the white space changes.
No, well, I mean, the point I was trying to make with this was that, like, I think at some point, like, if you have a template and then you have like, you can build like some type of a muscle memory. Sometimes the files might be too long, and then you, at some point, like if you do the first week of the template, like it didn't work out, like maybe you see like, oh, there might be other things that you want to improve. I'm just saying, I've never really like managed the team yet, so I don't know if it's.
So what's on your template? Like, what are the things that you tell people to look out for?
First of all, you have to see like function names, like the functions. You want to see the tests for each functions. You want to make sure like each function has its own test, and you check like how the code works. Then you want to go into like the steps, like the calls, like the different executions, like how you.
Do you actually?
There is a better way to do it, like stuff like this.
Do you actually check out? Do you check out the branch locally when you do code reviews?
Yeah, you check out the branch locally. How do you do your test?
The CI does the tests. We just look at the diff.
No, we check out the branch locally. I mean, this is common in my team. Like everyone, you check out the branch locally. You actually run the code. You see how it works, what happens. Like, it's a whole process on our side. Like, this is
ain't nobody got time for this.
This is why you have those yellow lights, because for us, like we I don't know, like I feel like it's very, they take it too seriously. Initially, when I first got there, I was always feeling like, it's just a space. Like, why do I have to go to rework because of this? Like, sometimes we could spend like time just like talking about, oh yeah, this line is going to be affect performance. Like, oh yeah, this is going to call another call. Like, we could go in tangents. Sometimes we have like in these tech talks, like sometimes we have it in our team where if you have a prerogative or something an idea, like you think would have been nicer to have done on that PR, and you want to share it with the team, you can come and say what you think. And now this is like a court of law. Now everybody gets to talk about it. So, so yeah, it's very interesting. I think this is probably one of the fun things about our development process. And I'm saying this now, and I sincerely do not think that I will feel this happy about it. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's nice. It's just nice to know, like, yeah, at least there's one good thing that you do well, I guess. Like, at least but
yeah, well, if it works for you, that's great, but
yeah,
we have our own constraints that are not to do with the pure concept of platonic software engineering.
yeah.
As I guess
I
every team has their own things that they'd like to be doing, but they can't for various reasons, right? So you just adapt to the realities that you're inhabiting.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. To be honest, sometimes the process, like, it's a bit stressful, because you feel like, yeah, after you spent like a long time like finding the solution, and then now you have to defend what you have written, and someone gets to ask you all these questions, like, bruh, I just spent days finding a solution. I barely found the solution. And
Bruh,
then now you have to defend it.
why you rejected my changes, bro?
I barely found the solution. Now I have to defend it. But it is what it is. Anyway, it's
yeah. I think in our case, it's a little bit more top down, as in, there's less latitude in creative decision making for majority of people in the team, because there's like direction and they're implementing. I think it varies. It's not like it's a complete dictatorship, but it's mostly a benevolent dictatorship in a sense.
Yeah, I think maybe that could be it. Yeah.
Because if we had all the time in the world, and you can give people enough time to make a bunch of mistakes and learn from them and grow, it would all be very nice and everybody would be super good, and then we never ship anything on time and get fired. So we have to balance the both sides of actually shipping shit and trying to get as much educational opportunities out of it as possible.
Yeah.
And you can bring the horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So I can leave all of the comments and code reviews and hoping for all of the dominoes to fall, and sometimes they don't fall, and there's not really that much I can do about it. Because the problem with that is it's a skill that I have that I cannot teach. Of all the things that I'd like to be able to teach is that, and I think that just comes from experience. So when you say experience probably doesn't matter in these things, I think it does quite a bit. It's just like seeing things quicker for more steps down that chain of reasoning, right? Just like seeing the conclusions from further away. And the other problem is sometimes is that you can see the initial condition and you can see the conclusion, but then in order to explain it, you have to explain every step of the way. And a lot of times, because of like this innate nature of it, it's really hard to verbalize something. It's like, how did I make a jump from here to there? I don't know. I just did, and it makes sense to me. Like, this is, again, it's not something that you can read a book on and become good at. You just need to practice it for many, many years, and then you get good at it, right?
Yeah.
So,
honestly, I see where you're coming from. This is true, because we have some staff devs on our side, sometimes they don't even have to look too hard. Like it's like magic. They just know things, you know? And then sometimes, you want to challenge and be like, yeah, but you check this, but you check. But at the end of the day, you can go in tangents. They are usually right. And maybe like at the end of the day, it's just a bunch of experience because they'd probably be doing it for like 20 years, like you, like many things you've seen. You've seen the rainfall at night, you've seen the rainfall during the morning, and you've seen it at all hours of the day. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, maybe it's possible too. We'll see.
Yeah, I guess we will.
We'll see.
All
Anyway,
right.
Vasily, it's really nice talking to you. I always enjoy our conversation. Feel like we have a lot to catch up on every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
It was a bit of a mad ranting and raving of a lunatic this time, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of, talk about it and get it off my chest. So, for everyone else that's still with us, I hope you've endured the rantings and ravings, as I said before, and find some kernel of wisdom in all of this stuff. And if so, I'm glad that you were with us, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.